overview, but let's jump into questions. There aren't any questions in the doc at the moment. Feel free to just start verbalizing and we can type it in while you're talking.
Kenny, slides are too comprehensive. Go ahead, Sid, sorry.
No questions.
Hey, Kenny, I'll verbalize that I really enjoyed your deck. Thank you for adding things about gratitude and the thoughtfulness that you put into your deck. That's really, really nice. And I think we all need a little bit of that right now. So nicely done.
Yeah, thank you. I'll say I cribbed it from the marketing group who had a similar set of content that I thought was really great, especially because the product groups are so cross-functionally involved. There's a lot of things that go into us producing new product features, and it's not just contained within the R&D department.
Kenny, in your prep talk, you talked about us being able to compete more with Artifactory.
Yeah.
What is missing there most if you talk to customers? Is it that we should support more packages, or that we should have like remote repositories, or what is the diff in your opinion?
Tim, you want to talk about that? I know you have some content about that in your direction content.
Yeah, the big difference right now is that we only support GitLab hosted repositories, but most organizations that are looking to replace Artifactory also need Artifactory. We call it remote and virtual repositories. This is the ability to connect to outside package repositories and then group them behind a single logical URL. Until we get that, it's going to be hard for teams of more than 15 people when we start to see that workflow break down. So that's really what they're looking for now, and less focus on expanding into new formats. Although we do hear frequent requests for Ruby and some of the Linux operating system things like Debian and RPM.
Can you explain, thanks for that. Can you explain what remote and what's the difference between remote and virtual repositories? I understand both are things that have like a canonical location someplace else, but what's the difference between the two?
A virtual is just a grouping of other registries. So it could be, you could have a virtual registry that is GitLab Maven repo, and you can define the order in which packages are served repository, except you only.
This is Matt. Yeah, for Monitor, we've been seeing a lot of kind of code cleanup type work for, especially with a couple key contributors. So there's kind of bug fixes and style, linting type changes that we've noticed, and they usually fall to one or two contributors that are pretty active in our area. But we're also working to kind of promote it to try to encourage more community contributions with some blog posts, and we had some other ideas too. So we'll hopefully be trying to get even more for the Monitor stage as well.
That's super exciting. I really like hearing that.
Yeah, I would actually, I'll pull on this thread a little bit more. I'm not familiar with how we categorize community contributions, but I would be interested if they, I would have a hypothesis that they generally fall into two buckets. One, I'm interested in learning how to code and participating in an open source project like GitLab. And so I will find kind of a low-hanging fruit that I can contribute to. And the other one would be, I'm a hardcore user of GitLab, and this is a pain point, and I'm going to solve it myself through a community contribution. I would be interested to know what the kind of split is within our area, but volume-wise, we certainly see a lot of the former. I'm trying to learn how to contribute rather than the latter.
There's another kind that's really valuable that we get a lot of, at least on the CI side, which is really active participation in problem solving in the issues. So it's not necessarily writing a line of code, but it's very technical discussion around, how a keyword should work or how we should resolve some issue. And that happens quite a lot in CI, and there's really great contributions in that way from the community. That's maybe even a third track that we could try to figure out how to grow more as well.
Cool. Thanks for the question, Christy. Christopher, you have the next one.
Yeah, we're just a week out from Q3. So I saw a lot of good results in Q2, but I was curious if either had highlights from Q3 or what you're thinking about.
Yeah, I will say I'm not sure if there will be any direct ops section OKRs, in the sense that the product OKRs seem to generally be generic ones across all product groups. So we're considering adding Gmao for, and Sid, or one of my leaders, might correct me about how much considering versus actually locked some of these OKRs are. But from my perspective, adding Gmao as a performance indicator and beginning to measure and track that, participating, and I'm going to steal a little bit of Christy's thunder, in the Pajamas project as both an effort to improve our efficiency in our development process, but also to improve our performance. I think the Pajamas targets were selected in order to ensure that we improve our performance. There's another performance indicator, that page performance load indicator, that I think will likely fall, especially in Verify, as they have a couple of pretty heavy page loads. And then I mentioned in the overview that we have this new performance indicator page for the ops section. Every stage will have its own SMAO-based goal to track for the quarter. Tim Rizzi, I will give highlights to, has been at the forefront of this in Package, where they're not actually necessarily using a user-based metric, but they have been setting and then tracking themselves against specific goals for their sections product or their stages product performance, which has been great. We want to replicate that across all the other stages. Christy.
Yeah, you didn't steal my thunder. I wanted to talk more about it. So you've been super supportive of the Pajamas OKR for Q3, the one that focuses on migrating our components over to Pajamas single source of truth components. So you kind of started, but can you talk a little bit more about how you're thinking about this and why you've been as supportive as you've been?
Oh yeah, I'll start with why I'm supportive. I'm really supportive because I think it makes our development process more efficient. I mean, using shared components is certainly part of that. It also means that we have a more cohesive experience for our users, which is really critical. And one of the things that we as product leaders consider a lot is we have this great structure for having really independent product groups that can operate quickly and are geared to ship quickly. And we have to make sure that we also deliver a cohesive experience, because at the end of the day, our users don't just use progressive delivery or verify testing features. They use the whole of GitLab. And so I think it delivers on both those fronts. There's an added bonus that I think is particularly useful to product managers, which I saw bore out in a recent NVC. I would want to say it is in the release management group, but they were considering creating a dashboard. And one of the things the product manager was able to say with the designer was, in order to make sure this is MVC, we are only going to use existing Pajamas components. If the thing that we think would be great as part of our MVC requires us to create a new component, it's off the table. It's not MVC enough. But just think about what that enables you to do in order to really scope down and have a dialogue for how to scope down issues into things that can be quickly delivered or iteratively delivered. So that's an added bonus. I guess I'm also a proponent of the OKR because I think there's a lot of catch-up work, and it's the kind of thing that everyone can contribute to. Christy, you showed me the example of yourself making some of these improvements to using the existing components. So I think it's the kind of thing that I'd love for more people to share, even outside of just, only a front-end developer can work on that specific task. Cool. Sid, you're the next one.
Yeah, thank you. I was looking at the metrics for a monitor as they are available right now, and this is one graph, and it's the axis is really small, but it's going up. It's a session count. Preferably we want active users, but it's a start. And I looked at monitor health, and I see we have a cumulative graph. And in general, actually not in general, just in GitLab internally, we should never use cumulative graphs because they hide the problem. Problem here is that the sessions went down by 80%. So whoever was using it probably stopped using it. But if you look at this graph, it just doesn't magnify this problem. It all gets distorted. Like this is showing like, hey, basically almost nobody is using this functionality. And I think it's really not good for us to ever use cumulative graphs, and it leads us astray. It just visually no longer represents what the status of something is. And I don't think it's the first time I mentioned it. So I would ask that this gets remediated within days.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I will say a little bit of shame on me. I noticed the same thing when reviewing those graphs last week in preparation for our upcoming PI review and had not called it out, but you're completely right. It also has the effect of destroying the visualization in the axis itself because you're less likely to notice those aberrations in the true metric, which is the monthly metric. So I will make sure it gets resolved today.
I'm going to take care of it now.
Thanks, Kevin. Christopher.
Since it's gotten my attention on that graph, another side is just the fact that, you know, when I first read it, I wasn't sure whether this is incidents that we are creating as a company versus incidents that customers are actually generating and using the product with. So clarification in the paragraph would be very valuable there, I think, because the intent there is obviously to not cause, but have customers use our product as opposed to GitLab causing more incidents.
Yeah, great point. I think there's also so yes, and it would also be valuable because this is the current maturity of this category is in minimal, and we want to make sure that we're dogfooding it. There's probably also a component of how much of that is internal uses versus not that we're seeking to explore, being able to show in that graph directly. I've seen similar charts in other groups that seem to be capable of showing GitLab internal usage versus general product or customer usage. Sorry, Kevin, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, we can clarify it in the paragraph. Currently, it does not include internal.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, and I think in the last PI review, we'd suggested we should try to figure out a way where we could separate between the two, because the metric we're trying to drive today is internal, given we're focused on dogfooding. Cool. Other questions, Christy? I do put Easter eggs in my slides.
I found it.
Guess we'll leave that to everybody else. Maybe Christy will share some later time what the Easter egg was.
Kenny, I can't see the doc, but you've been a big proponent of GitOps, and I'm curious on how you see it's going. I think the marketing kicked off their campaign. Where do you see that evolving to?
Yeah, Brad, if you could see the slides, you would see one of my gratitudes was to William Chia, who he and I just participated in a GitOps panel in EMEA about an hour and a half ago. I think it's going great. William has been an awesome, I guess, evangelist for GitOps and GitLab's contribution to it. We've had great participation from key industry players. Today was with Google. I think last week was with, I can't remember who. William had a panel with a number of like industry leaders. It's awesome, both because GitOps has our name in it, and it allows us to attach to these kind of industry leaders in the area. It is the kind of thing that plays to GitLab's strengths, because as you're adopting GitOps, you're using source control, you're using CI, you get this complete integration, you get this connection between developers and operators around a common platform. I think it's a really important next use case kind of push for us, and I'm excited to see it taking off as quickly as it has. And I will say thank you, Brad. Brad has been an awesome contributor to the content for that, and has brought a lot of insight and created issues and helped our team target improvements in the product that would best help GitOps practitioners. All right, any other questions? Not gonna do the countdown. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.